Quilters, this is Sarah from Snugglebug Stitching, and today we have another episode of a little series that I like to call Can I Do That? And just a hint, yes, you can do that. This series, I am looking at things that I feel like quilters tend to argue about and quilt police tend to try to nail you on that are actually not a matter of structural integrity of your quilt, but a matter of personal preference. So for this one, we're going to look at the binding. And we did look at binding in the first episode, but we're going to continue on binding for a few episodes just because I feel like this is the thing a lot of people like to argue about. In the first episode, we looked at the seams in your binding. And for this quilt, there are a few controversial talking points about the binding that we can go over here, but specifically, we are going to look at, can you bind back to front instead of front to back? Now, obviously, this quilt has the binding back to front, so yeah, you can do it. I do it a lot. I've made literally hundreds of quilts and done all of them except for one that way. So you can do it. Personal experience, this does not harm the structural integrity of the quilt. I have quilts that are 5 years old and have been washed dozens, maybe hundreds of times, and that back to front binding has not hurt them. So binding back to front is something that I just decided when I first started making quilts. I didn't ask anyone. I did watch quilt videos, tutorials for making binding, but I didn't pay attention to whether they were binding back to front or front to back. I just decided that back to front is what I wanted to do, and I've pretty much stuck with it. So you can do whatever you want to on that. One of the things that people say as to why they would prefer to bind front to back is to have a more polished look on the front. So this right here is kind of what your front of your quilt would look like if you bind front to back. And I can't argue with that. That's a nice little neat miter there. It looks good. But I also like the look of a nice, neatly executed miter on the front of the quilt. And granted, this does take practice, but to be honest, I was doing it this way before I knew what I was doing and before I could make it look like that. So there's no reason why you can't do that too if that's what you want to do. Another reason people tend to like front to back binding instead of the way I do it is that you have the skinnier part of the binding on the front and it's less likely to cut off star points. So can't argue with that if that's what you like, do it. But in the end, the point of binding is to close off those raw edges. So you don't want your batting exposed. And if you did that, you did a great job.